There are tons of different mobs in Minecraft, and I've touched on making a farm for cows and sheep before, but I think I'd like to take a look at making farms to breed all these different types of animals, as well as taking a look at our cow and sheep farm to get more output and actually work with the newer versions of the create mod. So the first thing we need is a way to actually breed our mobs, and with the create mod, I think this should be relatively simple. All we gotta do is give a deployer some wheat, and then if it uses that on a mob, it'll go into love mode, and if we use it on two mobs, then they will actually be able to breed. So I guess first things first is we need to get these guys in a smaller pen, so that way we can actually breed them up with one deployer. So now if I place my deployer here, and I'm going to do a hopper above this for now, which we will fill up with wheat. Now when I spawn my sheep in here, I should be able to automatically feed it, except we're a block too close. So now, there we go. Now we can automatically breed our mobs. And this should work for every single mob except maybe our horses. Everything else should be able to fit in this one by one. Now the next step in the system is we gotta actually get just the babies out. So right now, if babies spawn, they're actually able to come out of this one block area. So maybe if I went and did that, now when babies are gonna spawn, they'll just kind of topple off the side, which I think works pretty well. And then after that, we can either do water stream or a belt to move them to wherever we need to move them next. Ooh, so we did get some little sheep that were stuck. And that must have been because they were like stuck on this back wall. So maybe if we did something like this instead, oops, that's not a sheep. Now they should come out either side and they should have a less chance of getting stuck. And that looks pretty good. So now we had no baby sheep stuck in there. So I have to leave both edges open like that. Now for cows, this should also work just the same. So as we get our baby cows, they should just get pushed out, which works out pretty well. Should be the same thing for wolves. It's not, so they can actually squeeze through there. So will a slab stop wolves from going through? Okay, so that'll stop wolves, but it won't allow baby wolves to go through. So what I'm wondering is if we have a sticky mechanical piston and we do it to place only when anchor is destroyed. Then we place that there. Now we should be able to, yeah, very precisely control the height of that exit. So I think what I'm gonna do is we're gonna gear this down so we can actually turn this very slowly. So if we do a small cog, actually a large cog and then a small cog, now when we spin this, the other area will move a lot slower, and I think we actually want to do that down at least one more time. Yeah, so now we're moving it just a little bit every time. So if we put some wolves in here, and they're squeezing right through even though they should not be able to fit through that gap. Maybe we do need to go down a little bit more. And I think we're getting some weird collision with the create mod because I couldn't squeeze through that, but it seems like our wolves are able to, unless, are we finally down far enough where they can't? No, they still can. So you can see they're every once in a while they're getting squeezed out through there, even though they really shouldn't be able to be. Okay, well this should work. So if we put a fence here and then open this up, the wolves can't squeeze through here because the extra height of the fence. So you have to put more wolves in here, but the baby wolves, they're able to kind of come out the side here because the hitbox is so much smaller. So that is what we'll do for our wolves. Now I wonder if the same thing would work for chickens. So chickens, yeah, it looks like they won't fall out of there by default, but then our babies will. So that is what we'll do for our chicken farm too. However, even though the chickens should be fine with this, what about rabbits? Okay, so it looks like rabbits are able to squeeze out of this. Now what if we do our slab trick? Okay, so it looks like our adult rabbits won't be able to fit through that. Oh, never mind. Yes, they can. So maybe we need the slab and the fence, because that should completely close that off except the corners. So we spawn a whole bunch of rabbits. They are stuck in there. and our baby rabbits are going to come out. So that'll be how we do our rabbit farming. And for pigs, I think we can go back to our single block design. Never mind. Can we do a half block design? I think our baby pigs are going to be too tall for that. They are. So maybe we need to go the wolf route and do our fences. Yep. There we go. So our baby pigs are going to fly out, and our adult pigs are going to get stuck. And then finally, our donkeys, horses, and llamas, we're going to need a 2x2 space because a 1x1 isn't going to fit them. Now I'm wondering if, because they have a bigger hitbox, if our deployers are more easily able to feed them, or if we're going to need more deployers. So let's go ahead and put some horses into here. Oh, or is this area not big enough? Okay, it is, just barely. So they're kind of hard to squeeze in here. Maybe we'll instead grab a lead and then get them to fall in. There we go. That's how we'll do it. So now we've got our horses. You can see that one's in that back right corner. So if I place my deployer there with some wheat, ooh, it's not actually setting them to breed mode. It's just feeding them wheat. So you can hear them eating it, but they're not actually breeding. And I think that's because you don't need wheat. You need golden apples or carrots. I don't know if I've ever bred horses in Minecraft, because that is a fact that I did not know. Well, hang on. They still just seem to be eating it. Okay, what is going on here? Oh, they're not tamed. That explains it. Okay, so now that our horses are tamed, there we go. And yeah, it does look like that one in the back right corner is not getting hit by the deployer. Let's see if we can't add one to the side here and see if that works. And we're going to go ahead and try wheat again, because that should be able to breed them. It does, okay. So for the horses, we're going to need 2 deployers. And then for getting the baby out, I think we just do a 2 high. That's too high. 1.5 must be what we want. Okay, and so for 10 different animals, we only need 5 different cell designs for breeding them. For rabbits and cats, we want to use a 1x1 cell with some slabs and some fences. For pigs, chickens, and wolves, we want to use a 1x1 cell with sets of fences on the edges. For cows, sheep, and mushrooms, we want to use a 1x1 cell with 1 full block on the edges for the babies. And then for horses, donkeys, mules, and llamas, we want to use a 2x2 cell with half slabs, so there's 1.5 block gap for the babies to go through. For the next step of our farm, we have to extract the animals and send them on to our next step of processing. For some of our mobs that don't really have any worthwhile drops, which will be our frogs, horses, donkeys, mules, and llamas, wolves, and cats, we want to be able to take them into a pen, that way we can store them for later use. So the first one we're going to take a look at is wolves, and I'm hoping that it's going to be as simple as just kind of having some belts over here. So if we spawn a bunch of wolves, that does work. So as our breeding machine is breeding the wolves, they'll just kind of be funneled down onto these 2 belts, and they can then be extracted. And looks like we are getting some stuck in this corner. So I'm wondering if we can extend the belt. Looks like we can't extend it back a block because they'll get blocked by the fence. So we may need 2 sets of belts. So if we did that, then they could theoretically fall either direction. So now when we spawn a bunch of babies, yep, they'll all get funneled out into one of the 4 corners. And now that they're on belts, they're pretty easy to move around. And do you know what? I think we can actually make this simpler by just dropping this all down a block. So that way they can just fall down to this level. And then we can go back to our 2 sets of belts. So if we did this, yeah, then all of our wolves will drop down onto the single belt, even if they spawn in this back corner. Wonderful. Then from there, we just do another belt, and then this could just drop into our pen for holding them, and that should work out pretty well. And this design should also work for pigs and chickens. So if we spawn our pigs with a lot of babies, yep, they'll get funneled down onto our belts. And same thing for our chicken babies. They'll get funneled down onto the belts where we can then take them and move them across our world. One thing you'll notice is they can actually walk off these belts. So I think what we'll have to make sure is that we like fully enclose these sides so that they'll be automatically moved. And for our horses, we basically just need to turn this one into a 2x2, which we can do very easily just by doing that. And then now this should work for our horses, where when the babies drop down, they'll get moved on the belt. Although we will need to take this down just one more block so that way they can actually be moved by the belt. Okay, so here is the finished breeding enclosure. And this is going to work for all of our 1x1 mobs. The one thing is that we just have to go in and modify it to shrink down like the height where the animals come out. So if, for example, instead of cows, let's just say we wanted to breed up chickens. What I would need to do is come in here, place a fence here, and place back the glass, and then do a fence there. Get my first few chickens. And then right now I've filled this up with wheat, so we want to switch those for seeds. And then we do have to come in here and take them out of the deployer hand. So now it's going to be using seeds on the chickens. Just going to breed up our baby chickens, and eventually they'll get squeezed out the sides. Let's go ahead and add a few more chickens to speed that process up. There we go, we see our first baby chicken fall down. And there's the second one, which was the actual first one we breeded. And then they'll get funneled down over here and then out this end. Now, if we're farming something that we just want to keep in a pen, all we need to do is have this drop down 2 blocks into a large pen, and then we can start actually storing our animals. But there are quite a few animals that we do want to farm for their drops, so let's start looking into how we could extract those drops. So all the mobs we're farming are 1x1, so I'm thinking that we can make a pretty easy design that can be easily modified for each mob. So here we've got a bunch of chickens and baby chickens, and what I'm thinking is if we put in the perfect amount of speed into this encased fan, it should blow lava to just start burning the top of these. And actually, I think I want to switch out the lava for a campfire, because then it'll actually do like the smoking operation and it'll cook up the meat. So let's go ahead and grab a creative motor. And that was too much. Okay. So let's start at like 3. Okay, we'll start at 1, which even almost looks like it might be too much. So I'm going to do this. Okay, so 1 doesn't do the adults. So let's spawn a bunch more adults and babies. So if I make this 2, they're still alive. 3, they're still alive. 4, they're still alive. And 5, you just saw that? It killed all the adults, but left all of our babies alive. So that makes me really confident because chickens kind of have the smallest difference in height. So what we'll do is we'll do an encased fan with a campfire, and they'll put in the perfect amount of speed to basically kill the adults but not kill the babies. All right, and here is the final design for our automatic mob farming machine. So it all starts up at the top here, where you're going to kind of lead in and drop in your animals. Once you've dropped your animals in, the next thing you want to do is load up this chest with the food of choice for that animal, and the deployer underneath it will automatically breed the animals. So in this torn down version I have, you can see when we put the seeds in here, they go down this chute and then into this deployer, which is automatically feeding our animals. Once they've bred and they have their babies, the babies will automatically fall down over the sides and then onto our belt track, where they will then be funneled down into our kill chamber. Now on their way through the belts, one thing you'll notice is they do have to go through a tripwire, which turns off our smoking machine. To get them all to actually fall down into one block to be cooked up, we need them to fall down 2 blocks, but that would interfere with our cooking mechanism. So we have this tripwire, which is hooked up to a pulse extender, which goes to a clutch, which automatically turns off our fan going to the campfire. So as our mobs pass through, they're able to fall down, no problem. Additionally, we do have one issue to solve here, and that's because our baby mobs will always want to go with their parents. So to stop them from being able to ever go to their parents again, we have this little fan which stops them from going to this block, because what they do is they want to pathfind to this block over here. So they were walking here and getting stuck, but with this fan, it'll push them back onto the belt to be killed. Once down in the chamber, this fan is perfectly set up so that way as soon as they grow, they will automatically be cooked up. And that's all controlled by this rotational speed controller, which needs to be set at -8 for rabbits, pigs, or chickens, and -7 for cows and sheep. And I have this all hooked up, running off of just 2 water wheels and a whole bunch of cogs. So this system should work really well for you guys. Should get you lots of infinite food, and because we're using the smoking to actually take down our mobs, we will automatically get the cooked version of their drops out. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at setting up our horse spawner, and I've got a pretty cool idea of how we could actually upgrade from our generic spawner over there. So for breeding horses, you want to get your 2 really good horses together and then breed out for better horses. And what I'm kind of thinking is a big pile of horses isn't really that helpful. So what I'm planning to do is have it so that way when they breed, they fall down, they'll pass over these fans and go into a pen. And then after they're in this pen, that fan will turn off. So then we can kind of collect our horses in all of the different pens and then already have them ready. And then if we're having these automatically turn off, the other thing we can do is have our farm automatically turn off when all, however many pens we end up having, are full. So that wasn't too bad at all. So I've got our system set up where there's one wireless link under each one of these pressure plates. So that way when a horse falls down, it will shut off the fan, which allows the next horse to go right past it, into the next one, and then go into the next cell. We've got 5 cells here, but this is very easy to expand. All you need to do is add more belts, kind of continuing out along the line here, and you can have as many of these little cells as you want. You can see in the back here, we've got these redstone links just hooked up to a clutch, and that basically turns on and off our fans. We've also hooked up our feeder system with deployers and a chest, as well as the bottom belt moving at the correct speed where they're moving fast enough so they don't hang out by the parent, but they still get blown off into the cell. So you can see we got our first one, falls into there. Our second one comes through, gets blown into the second one. Now, if you had a situation like this where there's a whole bunch at once, you might get more than one, but assuming you're only breeding 2 parent horses, you're not going to be having horses come out nearly this fast, so you should have one end up in each cell, just like this. And then after they're growing up, you can go test out each horse, figure out which one the best one is, and replace the parents, and then continue on until you have really, really good horses. The last thing I want to take a look at today is sheep farming. Now, I do have a video back from 2021 where I did build a sheep farm, but I think with some of the new stuff in the crate mod, we should be able to do some upgrades. The first big upgrade I did is we were able to make this a little bit skinnier by using smart chutes below our deployers to pull stuff out instead of funnels, because we can basically set a recipe here in our filter where we can set up shears on our deny list. So that way only wool will come out the bottom. And we can also have a block here because our deployer can actually go through that block now. The other thing is before we did not have a really good shear delivery system, but using weighted ejectors at the end of our belt line will allow us to have our shears go down to the line, be flung all the way back up to the front, so that way we can have a constant resupply of shears always going back and forth around our little loop. And when we see this line running low, all we got to do is throw some more shears on the belt and it will continue the cycle. The last thing I want to do is upgrade our storage. In the past, all I had was a single double chest, but now with vaults, I think we can do a pretty cool new storage system. And here it is, the upgraded sheep farm. So the first thing I tackled was power. So before, I just used creative motors, but now we're actually running off of 6 water wheels, which is powering everything up. And man, did I not realize how much stress deployers take. I started with 1, maybe 2, and I was like, that can do a line of deployers. Not even close. All 6 of these just barely run this entire farm. If we down even 1 or 2 water wheels, this thing won't run. But we got it all hooked up, so now as soon as the sheep eat and grow their wool back, they get sheared, wool travels down the belt, which is underneath the deployers, over into this giant vault, and then in this vault, I have this whole rainbow setup where you can just come up to whatever color you want, go into the chest, and you can find that color wool. We also made sure that the sheep cell has as many grass blocks near it as possible, so the grass block they stand on will usually grow before they're even ready to eat again, so as soon as they eat, their wool gets harvested, and then it gets sent over into our storage. This was a super fun project to revisit, not only the sheep farm, but making a horse farm, which I thought was pretty cool. If you're interested in checking these out for yourselves, or putting them in your own survival worlds, go ahead and check the description for the schematics. The one thing I didn't get around to upgrading and finishing is our frog farm here. If you guys are interested in seeing a Froglight farm upgraded with Create, let me know down in the comments below, and maybe that'll be a future episode. That's gonna do it for today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.